Welcome to Programming with Professor Caleb. Today I'd like to introduce you to arrays in Java. So one of the things that happens as our programs become more and more complex is that we start needing to manage quite a few things. So consider the savings account class we created. Now, of course, that was a very simple example, but we might have real bank account classes in an application for a bank. So suppose we're writing that application. The bank has lots of savings accounts, lots of accounts of all sorts of different kinds. Because there are so many, and because we don't know how many there will be, and we can't write code for each one individually, we can't create a variable for every single account that the bank has. Instead, we need something, some sort of container that'll hold lots of accounts and let us access each one to process each one individually. And the answer to that problem is something called arrays. There are other answers that we'll look at later as you progress through your programming journey. But our first answer to the problem is arrays. And arrays are a sequence of elements all of the same type. The array has a name, so we're going to have a variable that's holding my array, just like any other variable. And that name is going to refer to the whole array, the whole collection of items. Note that arrays are a special kind of object, so we're going to end up creating them using new. But first, let's look at how we declare arrays and how we say something is an array as opposed to a different kind of variable. And what we're going to do there is we're going to use square brackets to indicate that we want an array. So here I have the double square brackets prices. So prices is an array of doubles. It's going to be a collection of things. Letters, similarly, is going to be a collection of chars. Note that the brackets actually can come after the variable name. That is not recommended. It doesn't really make as much sense, but it's how things are done in some other languages, and so Java still supports that ordering. So when we start to actually create our arrays, as I said, they're a kind of object, and so we're going to use that new operator, the keyword new. We're going to specify the type and the size of the array. So prices is assigned new double, open square bracket, 10 is how many spots we're going to have, how many doubles this array prices can hold. Then close your square brackets and our semicolon. Letters is assigned new char. This will hold 26 characters. Int bracket scores, so I've actually declared the scores array and then gone right ahead and created it with is assigned new int 15 in the square brackets. Once created, the array size does not change. We could use that same variable to have a new different array, but the old array is fixed size. Once we make one, it's that big. We can't change it. We can only throw it away and have a new one. Note that we will often use named constants or variables for the size of our array. So we might declare a constant such as final int size is assigned 10, or final int max elms is assigned 15. And then we can use the size or max elms as we actually declare and create our array. So arrays aren't very useful to us if we can't actually access the individual elements. And the way we're going to do that is by using a subscript enclosed in square brackets, the same square brackets we use to declare and create our array. The first element in the array is at index 0. So this is just like our strings. In fact, tell you a secret, a string, inside that object string, there's an array of characters. And that's why they start at 0. So the first element is at index 0. So if I say score, open square bracket, 0, close square bracket, I'm looking at the first element in an array called score. Similarly, air, open square bracket, 9, close square bracket, is looking at the 10th element in an array called air. If we need to know about the last element in an array, so sometimes we won't actually know how big our array is, but in Java, the array knows how big it is, and we can actually use something called .length to find out the size of an array. Now this is a constant that belongs to the array. So there are no parentheses here. We're not calling a method. We're just accessing this constant that the array makes available to us to find out how big it is. The last element will always be at length minus 1, since the first element was at 0 and we just count up. When we hit length minus 1, that'll be the last one. So I could access the last element of an array called myAir by saying myAir.length minus 1 in the square brackets. Getting data into arrays is pretty straightforward, actually. We can assign into the array elements just like we do with other variables. So letters at 3 gets D, score at 0 gets 25, price at 1 gets $9.99. We can also actually put some initial values into an array when we actually create it. We replace the new with the values themselves. We do have to list all of the values we want, so however many values we put in this array, that's how big the array is going to be. So here's an example. In square bracket multiples is assigned, and I simply open curly braces, list all of my values with commas between them, and close the curly braces, and of course end with a semicolon because this is a statement in Java. Once we have our arrays and the elements in them, we can use array elements just like we use other variables. So here are a bunch of examples of using them in different ways. So score at 0 gets 4. We'll put 4 into the first element of the score array. Score at 0 plus equals 7. We'll add 7 to that. So at this point it would be 11 if we did these two things in a row. Score at 1 gets score at 0 minus 2. So score at 1 now has 9. Score at 2 gets score at 1 plus 5 times score at 0. So we're going to say 9 plus 55, so I guess that's 64. Score at j gets score at j plus 1. Basically copies the whatever j is going to copy the element after that one. So if j is 1, it will get score at 2 and put that into score at 1. If j is 5, it'll get score at 6 and put that one into score at 5. So the index actually doesn't have to be a number. It can be a variable, it can be an arithmetic expression, as long as it's an integer. So that's just a quick introduction to arrays and what they're all about. Thanks for watching. In the next video, we'll actually look at for loops with arrays, as well as passing arrays as parameters.